see me.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Two Dudes and a Mexican. I'm your host, Peter Soprano. To my right, the resident Mexican, David Quinones. And we are back in the basement for Conference Championship Sunday. Lots of topics. We've gone through for a week, and we got a bunch of topics to talk to you about. So much that we're actually going to split this into two shows. That's how long it's going to be. First show, we're going to talk about all the off-the-field crap that happened in baseball and all the coaching hirings and Luke Kuechly and all that stuff. And then the second show, we'll get to you with all the games and predictions and all that. But we want to start off with one of the biggest stories of the week. It's been crazy in baseball this whole week. And most of it seems to be, obviously, it centers around the Houston Astros, where they're stealing signs and using the electronics with the camera in center field and everything. And something obviously that came later in the week is Carlos Beltran, who was part of that conspiracy and that sign stealing, was a question whether he was going to get fired or not. The Mets decided to go with it and actually let him go, even though they said it was mutual ways.
They always say that,
yeah, exactly. He got fired. So that with all the stuff that's coming out, buzzard and underneath Altuve and Correa and all their jerseys. One, what do you think about this sign stealing stuff? And two, did the Mets do the right thing in firing Beltran?
I mean, listen, everybody's talked about this sign stealing stuff. The word in baseball is, every team does it, but not every team uses, obviously cameras, electronic devices. Obviously, MLB, actually before, you know what I'm saying, at one point, before Houston got caught and, rumblings came out, they actually issued a warning to all teams, letting them know, guys, you can't be doing this. You can't be using electronic devices. Now, obviously, the Astros got caught red-handed. Yeah. Listen, the Mets needed to do that move. Obviously, since even though Beltran wasn't. He wasn't being punished by MLB. It's a bad look. Yeah, it's a bad look to your fans. It's a bad look to the league. It's a bad just look to you know what I'm saying, to everybody. So
and he was a main part of it. Like everybody tries to say, oh, he was a player and players aren't. But he was a main part of it. Like he was like, listen, you want to try to help do this?
I was about to say, supposedly he was one of the orchestrators in developing the system,
and he became an assistant in the organization. After.
I mean, listen, the Mets needed to do what they needed to do. They did the right thing, even though in the beginning it seemed like they kind of weren't. Yeah, kind of seemed like they were going to put their heads in the sand.
I think media pressured them a little bit,
but the pressure came down, and they did what they needed to do, and I thought it was a good move because you can't have a guy like that running your team, with all that baggage. Being part of something like that, where the manager got fired. The coach got fired.
Yeah,
you can't.
So everybody seems to be taking a hit. Corey got hit, which, listen, and Boston loves Corey. He delivered him a World Series. They've been a good team since he was there, and he's an old school manager. They actually asked one of the players, they was like, what type of manager do you want to replace Alex Cora? And the player was like, somebody like Alex Cora. Like, he was the perfect manager for them, and he's gone now. And now, between him gone, AJ Hinch gone, Carlos Beltran gone, every single person that was named in that report has been let go. That's in the front office has been let go. Now, the next part of it, we have people on Twitter, whether it was real or not, saying there was buzzers underneath the shirts of Altuve and Bergman and everything. And then Trevor Bauer, an actual player, says that I believe so too. Like, an actual player in baseball saying, yes, I believe that they were cheating. I thought they had buzzers underneath. With that being said, if it is found that they did have buzzers underneath, what do you think should be the punishment after that?
I mean, definitely should be punished. I mean, listen, if as a player, I think that, you're getting paid by this organization, but still, I would think as a player, you have the right to say, listen, I'm not doing this. Yeah. If we're all in a team and you guys want to, wear these buzzards, I think I would at least tell, management and say, listen, I think this is cheating. I don't need this. I don't need this unfair advantage. If they want to do it, that's fine. But I don't want to do it. I should have the option. You have that option. You're grown men. Yeah, you play for an organization that pays you millions and millions of dollars. But regardless, you're grown men. You have ethics. You know what's right from wrong. So if you did it, you knowingly did it, you should be punished.
Yeah, and you know what? if I'm a player and I find out they're doing that, and I know they're doing that, I'm like, that's completely screwing me. I'm throwing a pitch at them. I'm hitting them. It's like I'm gonna hit them. Like, seriously, you're taking away any chance that I have. You know what pitch you're coming. I'm like, yo, do you know if this pitch is coming and it hits you right in the ribs? Like, let me tell you if that pitch is coming. I personally think if they find out that buzzards were in their jerseys during the 2017 season, I think the World Series title should be stripped away. I think that they should be the first team to have their World Series title stripped away, because that is such a huge help that you can't even quantify how much they would have won or lost depending on if they didn't know what pitches were coming. That I can't have them holding not even an asterisk. I want you taken away out of the record books as a World Series champion if that's me. So I can't have you doing that. The second thing is that organization is stripped of first round picks for like 10 years. Like,
it's crazy.
I want you pretty much to get the equivalent of the death penalty in college football. Like, you are not allowed to be good for the next 5-10 years, and I think that should be the type of punishment that they get. I don't know if you agree with that, but I mean, not only with that, I would also take away Altuve's MVP in 2017.
Listen, I definitely agree with what they did with the draft picks on that side of the coin. Stripping a championship, I think that's overreaching, just because all right. Yes, you did have a fair advantage in winning these games, but if you take that out of the equation, you don't know what happens. You don't know if they still win. You don't know if they still beat the Yankees. You don't know if they, we don't know, and we won't ever know.
Yeah.
So, but you can take away a championship, in the record books. You can do that. You can put an asterisk or whatever the hell. They still won the championship, though. I mean,
but that's your punishment for
everybody
cheating,
knows.
though.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's you can do whatever you want in terms of, again, putting in a book. Taking it out of a book, putting an asterisk. You could do whatever you want, in terms of that. But everybody knows, they still went out and they won it unfairly. Yes, I mean, if it all comes out, if they get true evidence that shows that yes, they did cheat. You know what I'm saying? When they went on that championship run, they did cheat. Last year when you know what I'm saying, when they made it to the World Series, even though they didn't win. So if you can find hard evidence, okay, they're going to be shamed. They're going to be shamed for a long time. They're going to be shamed in the record books probably. But taking away a championship, I don't know if I would go that far.
I put it as a little bit of the equivalent to what happening with Barry Bonds right now. Barry Bonds never failed a drug test. So technically you could say, listen, I never cheated. But we all know he took something. It's in the report. That's been proven he did take something, whether he knew it or not. He cheated. And because of that, he will never get into the Hall of Fame, ever. Like, something that he's never failed, and because of that, he will never get into the Hall of Fame. I kind of look at it like that. Like, technically, we don't know if they would have won or lost, but this is your punishment for cheating.
Gotcha.
So that's why I will say I can't have you represent the sport as the best team in the league this year if people are going to look at you as cheaters.
And just like Barry Bonds, I already think obviously his reputation has been tainted because of all the information that came out. Where he probably did, most probably did cheat, but he still hit those home runs. So he's still, what I'm saying, in the record books. People know that he broke that record. So people will always know that, even though it's tainted, but people will always know that.
There are pictures of him as a twig when he was younger, and he was a good player. He was a great player, but he decided to use the steroids, the cream and clear, whatever, and then his head bulked up 5 times the size. Like, there's pictures to prove it, and we know he actually took it. It's just whether he did it knowingly. That's pretty much what it was. But that wasn't the only top in baseball. We actually have on-the-field stuff with baseball this week, as my player, Josh Donaldson, decided to leave the Atlanta Braves, which makes you happy as a Mets fan.
He's a Twinkie now.
As now he went to the Minnesota Twins. So I want to talk about this really quick. So I think the Braves completely screwed up here. I think you had a person that was the perfect person behind Freeman. He protected him perfectly. He had 37 home runs. His OPS is over 900. He's the perfect protection, and that's why Freddie Freeman had one of the best years of his career, because he had ultimate protection behind him. Now, because you're not willing to pay one extra year, in a year where, and I was probably going to have DH in like 2-3 years. Like, I know we don't like it, but they're probably going to have a DH in like 2-3 years. And I've talked to people in organizations, they actually expect it to happen. So teams are actually planning already for the DH to be in the NL in 2022. So with that said, if you sign somebody like Donaldson to an extra year, you can have him as a DH. So you don't have to have him on the field for 150 games a year. I don't think it should have been that 1 year when he's 38 years old. When we've seen DHs play into the 40s like Edgar Martinez, I don't think that should have been the thing to stop them from doing it. But as I've said before, Braves have proven to be a cheap organization when it comes out to giving big contracts. So I think they balked, and now I think they're forced to make a trade, whether it's Chris Bryant, whether it's Nolan Arenado. I think they have to get one of those players. What is your take on that situation?
I mean, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, as a Met fan, I am happy because, listen, it just goes back to that old saying: if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
You had a team that went far, into the playoffs, who could have quite possibly made it to the World Series.
They're championship ready for the next 2 years.
I mean, yes. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Bring him back. Bring him back. Give him, what I'm saying, the money that he wants to. I mean, I highly doubt they could have, at least matched or maybe even just enticed him a little bit to come back.
Yeah.
And listen, there were doubts, especially when they gave him that, 1 year, $23 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he proved all the doubters wrong.
Definitely.
Listen, he had a great season, great comeback season. I mean, it was great for him. So.
Listen, I think that this is one of those situations where last year they had a couple issues. They had a bullpen problem. They had a problem with starting pitching. So they had two issues to fix. They couldn't fix all of that at the deadline. This year, if they re-sign Donaldson, now hitting was never the problem. They were a top 5 hitting team last year. If you go into this year, you say, all right, if you re-sign Donaldson, your hitting is set. Your bullpen is set because you signed like 3 bullpen players, and you got 3 closers in the bullpen. So you're good there. Sign Will Smith, and that was the guy I originally wanted. And now at the deadline, if you need a starting pitcher, you can go and get him because you're filled with prospects. So I thought they were completely set up. Now you have the situation where you have to probably trade people to get somebody to replace Donaldson.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to trade people again at the deadline to get more. You're going to clear out your farm system. Now, they do have a lot of people to trade a lot of top prospects. But now you go from being a top prospect organization where you can get it wherever you want to now you're going to be middle of the pack, if not middle third of the pack. So is that a situation where you just cost yourself because you didn't want to give 1 year of extra money? Twins end up giving 4-year deal, 5th-year option. The 5th-year option was an $8 million buyout. So in all, it's pretty essentially it's a 4-year deal, $100 million. I thought they should have been able to give that to him.
Definitely. I think they should have been able to match that.
Yes.
Or even just a little bit better.
And that's the thing. They didn't even have to match it because he wanted to stay in Atlanta.
It's crazy.
If they had given him 96, he probably would have stayed. But the problem is they didn't want to give him a fourth year. They gave him 3 years, whether it was $25 million a year, which is more than 23, but it's only $75 million. You're going to take 100 over 75. Mm-hmm. So that was their biggest issue. Once again, they come up short with trying to pay their players and keep their players. We'll see if they make a trade to get Chris Bryant. We have to see if he's going to have 1 year or 2 year left, or we'll see if they'll give up the prospects to get Arenado out of Colorado. But with that said, now we got to talk some football. Bunch of coaching changes during the past couple weeks, and we got to start out with your New York Giants.
You
They got their new coach. They signed Garrett as their offensive coordinator. They got a new defensive coordinator. Changed the whole organization. 1, what do you think of the signings? And 2, will this help compared to what you saw last year with Pat Shermer?
Our producer's already putting the whistle in his
There's
mouth.
flags. There's whistles.
He's already got the flags.
He's not wearing a referee jersey right now.
Listen. Would I have liked the Giants to go out and get Mike McCarthy? Yeah, I would have liked a signing like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that the Giants are heading towards another direction going forward. They don't want to go with one of those coaches who who is experienced, who's been a coach before, but has failed somewhere else.
Yeah,
they're trying to go. They're trying to find. That new coach, I guess.
When you're done, I got to take on McCarthy, too. I got to take on him.
They're trying to, listen, it's obvious they're trying to find their coach, that new coach, right? That new boy wonder.
Yeah.
Last year it was, what's his face? The guy that you don't like. I don't know why.
No, he's still not a boy wonder. LaFleur.
Still.
LaFleur is still not a boy wonder, man. I don't care what he's doing with Green Bay right now.
But that was him. So I see what they're trying to do. I mean, look what Shanahan did with the 49ers. Niners are, one game.
I would have rather you named him.
So, but listen, they're trying to find that new it guy. Listen, from what I've seen so far, I mean, he's got a little Coughlin in him, which is great. That press conference kind of showed a little bit.
Definitely.
Just trust the system. We have to trust the system. We have to trust these owners. Is it going to happen overnight? No. But listen, let's give this guy a chance. Maybe he's making the right moves.
You know what?
Maybe he's going to implement, something that this organization hasn't had in a long time. That presence, that coach that's going to, really make an impact. Oh. And that's what they've been looking for, and they haven't found it.
Well, one thing regarding McCarthy, I think he took advantage of having the best quarterback in the league to win his Super Bowl.
Definitely.
But two, he was always stubborn towards his plan and making the players work with his plan. And I would say the best thing about a coach is saying that the players don't have to adjust to the system. The system can adjust to the players. And I think he's very stiff with his players, saying you have to run the system, you have to do this. And listen, he wasn't good at the end of his Green Bay term. Like, they weren't. If you have Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback, you should not have a losing record. Like, he was bad at the end of his term. So I'm still not completely sold on McCarthy. So we'll see what happens with him. When you get these big name coaches like that, they have an ego, and that ego sometimes can overrun the team. So
True, yeah.
we'll see what happens with McCarthy. In terms of what the Giants are doing, listen, I like that you have a little bit more of that Coughlin back in there, because I think you need somebody to put some of these players in check.
Definitely.
And hold them accountable. That you have to be able to hold these players accountable. When you have players that will go against the coach, or you have players that will always have the penalty, or they won't go for that tackle, or won't go completely hard for that tackle, you need them yanked off the field. You need them to be held responsible for their actions. And it looks like this coach is somebody that will do that. And as far as some of the other coaches they've hired around him, Jason Garrett, I said this on social media. He may be somebody like a North Turner. North Turner sucked as a head coach. He was a horrible head coach, but he was what? I'm talking about North Turner. You know? But listen, he was a very, very good offensive coordinator, and for many teams. So I think that this is a chance for him to show that, listen, I'm still a good offensive coordinator. They're two very different things between an offensive coordinator and head coach, and people don't realize that. They think, oh, you're a head coach, you just call the plays and you're fine. No, you're not an offensive coordinator. You can only spend probably 10-15% of your time with the offense, 10-15% of your time with the defense. The rest of the time, you have to coach men. You have to coach them as a team. You have to motivate them, keep them accountable. You have to keep everything in line, tell your coaches what to do, game plan. You have to do all those things. You don't have to do that as an offensive coordinator. You just plan the plays, look at the defense, and that's it. So there's so much stuff you have to do as a head coach that you don't have to do as a coordinator. So I can't compare the two. Now that Garrett's able to just concentrate on the offense and just do that,
maybe he's going to make it a better coach.
It's going to make him a better coach. So still got blows. What do we do right now? Like, listen. So with that, there's still other coaching changes that happen. The Cleveland Browns, everybody thought they were going to get Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
They ended up getting Kevin Stefanski, I think his name is. Now he's the new coach of that team.
Who is that guy?
He came from the previous what organization? What Vikings? One of the teams in the NFC I think he came from previously. But the point is that he's another no-name coach, like the Giants hired. But this is somebody that maybe actually not just when they hired Freddie Kitchens, they hired him because of Baker Mayfield. They said, all right, you were Baker's offensive coordinator. You got along with him. All right, you're the head coach. And then he realized all the things he was responsible for, like I was just talking about. It was too much. He wasn't ready to be a head coach. They say this guy is ready to be a head coach, so it's actually a legit head coach hiring. What do you think about this move?
I mean, listen, they needed to obviously make that move. Listen, again, I think this one's like a 50-50 because, again, you're right about one thing. When you're hiring these coaches, some of them want to run the offense. But these coaches need to understand it's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Because if you're running an offense, remember, you're not just running an offense, you're running a whole team as well.
Yeah.
Can you be able to multitask and take on those two big tasks? Sometimes, listen, head coaches will come in and they'll get their offensive coordinator. They'll get the defensive coordinator. They'll get those special teams. And they have their coaches in place that they know they don't have to worry about, those sections of the team. They can run the team like a boss, pretty much, and say, okay, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to run this team. I'm going to keep an eye on everything, but all my leaders, all my generals in essence are in place. I don't have to worry about it. So again, I think this is a 50-50 thing. They're trying to, again, find that new coach, that new it person. Mm-hmm. Let's see if it works. I mean, I don't know if it's going to work or not. So,
and I
don't know much about this guy.
And I messed up his name, Stefanski. That's his name, but he is from Minnesota. He's a Minnesota offense coordinator. So
no one cares.
So, hey, he had to deal with Kirk Cousins. So
Minnesota didn't even belong in the playoffs.
So, with that said, we got one more new coach to talk about. You brought him up earlier, McCarthy with the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think about that hiring?
I mean, listen, they needed to make a splash, right?
So the Cowboys do make splashes.
And it's funny how, you know what, the unwritten rule is, you know, you don't make an announcement right when, you know what I'm saying, when these playoff games are happening, and all of a sudden,
everybody's doing it.
What does he do? You know what I'm saying? Jerry Jones, you know, I'm not surprised. He makes that announcement, boom, when, you know, everybody's supposed to be talking about the playoffs, and now everybody's talking about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Their new signing. So, I mean, listen, is it a good signing? I think so. Just because of his reputation, what he did in Green Bay. I do agree with Pete, and he did have his pupil star, you know what I'm saying, in Aaron Rodgers, who...
Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers.
Definitely two different, you know, quarterbacks. Yet to be seen. I mean, listen, again, we'll see if he fits down in Dallas. I know he had some control though in Green Bay, so
he had a lot of control.
So he's going to have to take a back seat, obviously, because Jerry Jones runs everything. You know,
that's going to be the big question. Who's Eagles going to win out there?
How does that work? I don't know. I mean, they must have, you know, worked out something because obviously why would he go to a team like that? You know, that he can't run. You know, it's not normal. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think it was a good signing. They needed to make a splash. We'll see how it goes. You know, for next year.
Listen, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to be able to tell early. And the only question I really have about this, because I think he will improve the offense, but the biggest question I have about this is how are the Eagles going to work out? Because, as you said, you got Jerry Jones, that's a huge ego. He's the number one guy in Dallas. And now you got Mike McCarthy, who's also a big ego, and he does that. He owned the place in Green Bay. And that was actually one of the problems. Him and Aaron Rodgers had a lot of back and forth depending on what was going on offense. Now, with those two personalities in the room, I think it'll be good for the first year or two because it's a honeymoon period. After that, we really get to see if they can get along because we've seen this before. We saw Jimmy Johnson with Jerry Jones, and we saw they both had the monster personalities. Jimmy created a Super Bowl winning team, and then it was too much, and they had to let him go.
Crazy,
that
was crazy.
It's amazing. You have to let your Super Bowl coach, or just because you can't get along with him. Like that's the type of personality Jerry Jones is. So I don't think this will be a long relationship. I think it may last out the 4 or 5 years, and it'll probably end. And hopefully for them, they want to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. We'll see if it happens. I don't think it will, but that's pretty much all they have to live by.
No, it's not.
That's Dallas.
Hype team always.
That's what we got to do.
So hype team, hype coach. Is that where we're going with this?
But listen, what year is the Cowboys not hyped? They're hyped every year. So it's just going to happen. But the funny thing is that you talked earlier about, listen, it's not going to happen overnight. The two teams that are playing in the NFC Championship game today both had losing records last year.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So it can turn around.
I guess so.
If you get the right coach in there and you get the right 1 or 2 signings and draft picks, you can turn the team around immediately. We saw years ago when the Rams went from like a 4-win team to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl the following year. It can happen.
What do you do with Prescott? What do you think he will do with Prescott? You think they'll keep him?
Of course they do.
I think they'll keep him.
No, they have to keep him.
Well, if they sign him, they're going to have to sign him for a long-term deal. There's no quarterback that's a young quarterback that's going to sign like a 2 or 3 year deal. It's going to be at least like 6 years.
Or they're going to work together.
I don't know. We'll see.
I think they'll work well. I think him and Coach will work well. The problem I have is between the coach and the owner. But I think Prescott's young enough that he'll listen to McCarthy. If he was a little bit older, 30 years old, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, then you may have some conflict because they've been in the league, they've been MVP, everything. But Prescott hasn't done that yet. He's still a young kid.
So you say he's trash?
I'm not saying he's trash. But he's
come at me, Dallas.
he's in the top 10 to not top 10, maybe top 15 range.
Top 15.
He's a top 15 quarterback, so he's not a bum, and you can win with a top 15 quarterback, but you just got to have the pieces around him to work, and we'll see if McCarthy can make those pieces work.
I still say Dallas need some receivers that will jump for the ball. You see all this past playoff?
I tell you.
Season. Some of them didn't jump for it.
Amari Cooper,
lazy.
the Cowboys are saying what Amari Cooper is. He's somebody that can show flashes, but he's not consistent. No. That's what they're showing. And that's what the Raiders saw, and that's the reason why the Raiders traded him.
Gallup's looking good, though.
Let's be real.
Gallup's looking good. He's still a young player. He's still good.
He's emerging.
Prescott put the ball there for these receivers to catch. They just didn't bother catching it.
And they needed a new offense coordinator because they need to run the ball more. Like, that's what the reason why they were good.
Beasts like Zeke.
Yeah, the reason why they were good because they ran the ball with Zeke all the time and did play action. That was it. And they stopped doing that this year. I don't know because maybe they got too much confidence in Dak.
Maybe.
But they went away from their breadwinner. And when you have a good...
How much they paying? $1 billion.
They got to be a run first team.
When you have somebody like that and you want to win, running backs aren't going to last 7-8 years anymore. They're going to use 5 years. You got to run him down the ground. You got to give him 350 touches. That's it. And the same thing with the Giants with Barkley. Now, when they started losing, you got to scale back because you don't want to wear him down.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
When you have a chance to win, you got to give him 30 touches. You can't just say, oh, we're going to give him 15 carries and 5 catches. No, you got to give it to him a lot. He's your best player. Especially since you did trade Odell, so he's now the center of the offense. Everybody knows that. You got to find ways to get on the ball.
Yep.
So we'll see if that Garrett will be able to get him the ball.
That marriage.
Yeah, so
we'll make it through that, honeymoon stage and then be okay.
One other off the field topic with football today, not today, but this week, Luke Kuechly decides to retire at the age of 28 years old.
Yeah,
following in the steps of people like Patrick Willis, Andrew Luck, and now it seems that. Now, do you think something like this is going to happen more and more, or do you think these are just rare occurrences?
No, definitely. I think it definitely is going to happen more and more because, there's a lot more studies out there. There's a lot more information, about, concussions and, saying these players after they leave football, you know what I'm saying, how they're kind of, just withering away, their bodies. This is very familiar with, Andrew Luck because Andrew Luck kind of said the same thing. He was... it's the game he loves. It's the game that he's played, as a kid, but he just can't play it anymore. He can't play it like he wants to. It sounded the same thing like with Kuechly. He said that he can't play it anymore. He physically can't do it. And it
hurts to hear somebody say that. Who plays at such a high level?
Yeah, high level. And who's been one of the best at that position? For a long time. So I think it's definitely going to happen more and more. This game, as much as we love it as fans and as entertaining it is, I mean, it's not for the human body, obviously.
It's brutal.
It literally...
And we only talk about the big names. Yeah. We're not talking about the guys that may be an average player that retired, that decided to leave early. They can get jobs on football teams, whether they're a backup or a third string, but they just can't take it anymore. And we don't hear about the Tennessee quarterback from 10 years ago, Jake Locker. He decided to leave after 4 years.
Yeah. Look, Megatron. He was still one of the best wide receivers, and he decided to walk away. So I mean, it's definitely happening more and more in the past.
Yeah,
and it's just
and your body just goes through the pain.
It's different like it was back in the day. I remember listening to Gio and Boom earlier this week or last week, and I remember Boomer saying
don't mention him on our show.
I remember him saying back then there wasn't a fucking tent that you would go to.
Mm-mm.
There wasn't it was just you were concussed, you went right back out there. I mean, it's just maybe sideline, for a play or two, and you just went right back out there. There was nothing like this, these studies and the tent and this and that. None of that stuff.
Listen, the year that I covered the Super Bowl, I took Poco Ray Lewis. It was an event they had, and he was talking about concussions. He said he had over 100 concussions in his career.
That's ridiculous.
Over 100 concussions in his career. And it's just ridiculous. He said you would get the concussion, you have a concussion, but at that time, you just shake it off and walk back out there.
And that's the same thing, again, Boomer said it. And now it's different. Now we're in a different age, you know what I'm saying, where, again, the studies are out there. They're trying to protect players more. The NFL's trying to do
different helmets, different heads.
The helmets, all that stuff. So it's crazy. I think it's definitely going to happen more and more. The smaller names, the big names, I think so. I think it will. Unfortunately.
And that's the thing. And I think the big part was Andrew Luck because, like you said, we've had people do it before, but Andrew Luck was a star quarterback in his prime. we all know.
Who just came back.
Yeah, we all know quarterback is a different. We all know quarterback is a different position. That's the star position. When you win, you get too much credit. When you lose, you get too much of the blame. Like the quarterback is the position that's talked about. So for him to walk away from the game at age 28 or 27, 29, something in that range, and you leave in the middle of your team about to make a playoff run because they were a good team if he comes back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And they were a playoff team the year before when he was there, and you just walk away. It makes you think. You first immediately think of two things. One, like, wow, this actually happened. Like a star top 10, top 5 quarterback in the league just walked away from the game in the middle of his career. And two, you start thinking like, will he come back? Like maybe he needed a year off or two. Somebody like an Andrew Luck or somebody, whether it's Kuechly may not do it because the linebacker you're getting hit almost every play. But somebody like Andrew Luck, do you think maybe in a year or so he may come back? Because he loves the game. He obviously said that.
Yeah, maybe. So. Maybe. I mean,
is it good? Is it good if he comes back?
Good for what? Good for the fans or good for him?
Good for him.
Good for him. I mean,
I don't think so.
Only time will tell. I mean, probably not because obviously
he's going to get more punishment.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, his body's going to take more punishment. Again, maybe he fears he won't ever be the same again. I think that's the biggest thing.
We've seen so many players that they have trouble speaking or they forget so much things because
they barely
CTE
walk
and all these things that happen to you. And I think he sees that and says, "I don't want to be that." Yeah. And I know Calvin Johnson specifically said that. He actually said that he used to smoke almost every day to get away from the pain.
That's crazy.
Like that's and it's crazy that they never caught him for that either. That's the
ways around.
Like I always say that. Like, listen, yes, it's crazy that he did that, but I was actually most shocked that the NFL never caught it.
Yeah.
And I always say that about all sports. I'm like, somebody told me a long time ago, probably about 10 years ago or 8 years ago, they said 50% of the athletes you watch are doing something, and they just haven't been caught.
That's crazy.
There's great masking agents. There's things you can take where you'll be able to get by the test, and that's why you see some tests come back and they're inconclusive because they have masking agents and they have things that they can take. Where
there's a lot of ways around it. Come on, let's be honest here. So and just the normal public sometimes uses these ways to get around whether it's a job or whether it's some trouble they got into or something like that. There's always ways around that stuff.
Exactly. So, and they have the money that have access to different ways. So, even more ways than we would have access to. So,
crazy,
there's always ways to find ways around these tests and everything. But for somebody to have to do that every day just to deal with pain, and we heard about Brett Favre taking pills every day to get rid of the pain. These players go through so much.
They do.
And we don't really appreciate it as much as we should. And I don't think that the owners and people that pay them appreciate it. This is why they make all the money, because they're putting their bodies on the line every single day. We don't know if they're going to get paralyzed. We don't know if they're going to die on the field. We don't know all these things that are going to happen while they're going through this. And we only see what happens during that 3 hours that we see them on TV. After that, we don't see anything that happens in their real life. So, listen, I salute Luke Kuechly for actually saying, listen, I can't do this anymore. I want to be able to walk 5 years from now, so I'm going to go away now. And I wish him the best on his retirement.
I do too, man.
So, with that said, this was the first part of our Two Dudes in Mexican Championship Sunday weekend.
Championship Sunday.
Next episode that we're going to come on in a couple minutes, we're going to talk about all the games. But we will catch you in a couple minutes for that. We're going to take our little halftime break. Peace out, guys.
Órale, mi gente. Love you.